We want to welcome a great friend and a hell of a football player, hell of a football coach, and just an all-around great guy. My roommate for 9 years with the Cincinnati Bengals, wore number 14. 14 in your program, number 1 in your heart, man. Multiple-time Pro Bowler, league MVP. Not many people can say they were National Football League MVP, but this guy can. Yes, sir. Talking about none other than the great Ken Anderson. How you be, my man?
I tell you, I always like being with you, Lapham. You make me feel so good.
Well, I'll tell you, well deserved and well earned, man. I'll tell you that right now. What do you think? I guess let's start it off with what do you think about this year's football team? I know it's a disappointment to a lot of Bengals fans, obviously. A disappointment to me, disappointment to you, probably. Disappointment to the coaches, to the players. They were expected to be in a much different position than 5-10 right now.
Well, yeah, and we've been there, Dave. We've been on losing teams, and I think the frustrating thing, at least, for the first 2/3 of the season, was one side of the ball was really good and one side of the ball was really bad.
Yep.
And, it wears on you. And, these guys are professionals. They're great guys. They're doing their best. But, as one guy told me, sometimes it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And I think we may be lacking in personnel just a little bit in some cases.
One area where we're not lacking in personnel is at the quarterback position with Joe Burrow. I mean, when healthy, Joe Burrow is amazing. I mean, he's one of one, very unique. I think you guys are cut from the same cloth, though. I mean, had the privilege of playing with you for years in the 70s and 80s with the Cincinnati Bengals, and you and Joe Burrow are the two most accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen. No question about it. What is it that lets you guys throw the ball so accurately?
I think to a certain extent, Dave, it's just a God-given ability that you can throw a ball that's not round from here to there and know where it's going to go and know whether it's got to be hard, soft, whatever. And then the other thing, is mechanics. A lot of it is, I remember Steve Young saying, if you just film me from the waist down, I can tell you if I played well or not. Just, the balance. And then I think, one of the things that Joe's really good at is the off-schedule plays and throwing on the run. But, I think a lot of that you work on. I know when I was coaching, in training camp, we always had our throw of the day that we'd work on. It was just an off-scheduled throw that you had to make. And I always, used the Joe Montana to Dwight Clark, the catch, in the end zone. That would be an example of a throw of the day, and we would show the video, and then we will work on it, or we'd show videos of plays that we had from the year before that were off schedule, and we'd work on that throw and making sure that your body's in the right position. So, you can still work on kind of that stuff, but I say a lot of it, and he's got a whole lot of it is God-given ability.
The off-schedule stuff, is that something that you can work on? I mean, you coached in the National Football League. You coached for the Cincinnati Bengals. You coached with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You had quarterbacks that you were teaching, the mechanics and fundamentals too. In terms of when it was off schedule, you talked about the base, the foundation, had to be good. But what are the a few coaching points you used to give players, quarterbacks, when they had to compete and perform when they were off schedule?
Well, I think, you got to know where the defense is and then know where the defense is. That's where a lot of times, throwing back across your body into the middle of the field and you see it intercepted. Well, there's a guy you didn't see. So, that was always, the big coaching point. You can do those things, but you got to know where the defense is, and then you got to know where the defense is so you don't get any surprises.
You were as good as I've ever seen with mechanics and fundamentals. I mean, your throwing motion was textbook. I mean, people should, if there's video, and there is video, they should take that video and show it to quarterbacks, say, do this. this is how you throw and throw accurately and compete at the highest level and work your way up to the National Football League and maybe become a Pro Bowl player. Who taught you, Kenny? Who taught you those mechanics and techniques?
Well, I think a lot of it is just, playing multiple sports growing up. When I was, starting in Little League, and up through high school, I played baseball. And I always thought that was my best sport. And I was a catcher and a shortstop.
That makes sense.
And when you catch, you learn you've got to throw the ball over the top so it doesn't tail off when you're trying to throw a runner out at second base.
Yep.
And I think there's the overhand throwing motion that you'd like to see a quarterback have. And then playing shortstop, you learn a lot of different arm angles on throws depending what the play calls for. So, there's why I got to, lower my arm. It's got to go around a defensive lineman or between them or whatever. So I think those things really helped me out. And then, of course, having my first coach in the NFL being Bill Walsh, who was a stickler for the fundamentals of the drop back and balance in your lower body, and that really helped me out as well.
You went to Augustana. You played high school basketball, though, in Batavia, Illinois, with Dan Issel. How did basketball help you become a better quarterback, do you think?
Well, you played basketball, Dave. All those defensive footwork drills that you did with balance and having your feet not crossing over, all those things. And it's and seeing, as a guard, seeing a play develop and know who to dish the ball off to. I mean, I think that coordinates to seeing what you're seeing from a defense. But I think the only reason I'm in the NFL is because of my high school football coach, Bill Day. Growing up, basketball was my favorite sport. When you go to a small school, a small town, you play every sport.
Sure.
You need bodies at every level.
Right.
And so I always thought basketball was my favorite sport, and I thought baseball was my best sport. And football, you played to get to basketball.
Unbelievable.
And so, I wasn't recruited, for very many sports at all, coming out of high school. So I go to Augustana, and I'm going to play basketball and baseball. And it was, I look at the letter, and it's dated June 28th, that, my high school coach said, Kenny, you ought to try out for the football team. And I wrote a letter to Coach Strenko at Augustana asking if I could try out. I played quarterback, but I was an all-conference safety. I've been working out. And, at that time, Division III, they take warm bodies to fill out the roster.
Right.
And so, I played football and ended up, by the second game of the year, I was the starting quarterback on the varsity. And then the season ended, and now I'm a month late for basketball. And but I go, and by Christmas, I'm starting on the varsity in basketball. And then when the baseball coach called that we're hitting down in the bus barns, I was worn out at that point in time, so I never did play baseball, which I thought was my best sport. I always kidded Johnny Bench. I said I was a catcher. If I had to continue with baseball, Cincinnati may never heard of him.
Yeah, that's right. You would have been the big machine catcher, huh?
Oh, yeah. That's
Kenny Anderson.
In my dreams.
Kenny Anderson, Joe Morgan, and Danny Dreesen, George Foster, all the boys, Dave Concepcion, all the guys. Man, the playing, would you recommend playing multiple sports to any young athlete? I know today they get pressure from their coaches to a particular coach will say, look, you have potential to be really good in this sport. You should focus on this. Don't take away valuable time where you can get reps and, repetition breeds comfort level, and don't dally in something else. Don't dabble over there. Stay right here with this. Would you tell young players to do the opposite?
Well, I think it's hard on them right now, Dave, if they, because, you look, I played basketball. Well, I like to play baseball in the summer, but geez, I got to play on my AAU basketball team. We're traveling all over the place.
Yeah.
In high school, and girls volleyball. Well, the season's over for girls volleyball, but geez, I got to play on a club team.
Yep.
And there's just, so much pressure because these coaches on the teams, are always kind of working together. And well, these girls played on the club team, so they're going to have the advantage coming over when the high school season starts.
Yeah.
And so I think it's tough on kids nowadays, and I wish it were different. I got a little granddaughter in fifth grade, and she's really good at soccer, and she's really good at basketball, and she really liked cross country, and
Yeah.
and unfortunately, as she goes along now, which one do you want to play? And the thing is, she just goes out and has fun.
Yep.
And I think, for some of the kids nowadays, is it really fun? Gosh, not only do I got my club, team, but now I got to go to these private workouts, and I got to do these private training classes. And I got, all of a sudden it's 4 nights a week after school that it's not even in your school season that you're committed to a sport. And, I think we all play sports because it's fun. And I think a lot of times they lose the joy of it.
Well, you hit on a great point. I think, sports should be fun and make friends. The 2 F's, F squared.
Yeah.
Fun and friends. And, new teams or new experiences to have fun and to make new friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got, a couple of grandsons, and they'll have 2 or 3 games in the same day. The weekends, it's like I got 2 basketball games and a baseball game. I got 2 baseball games and a basketball game. Yeah. It's just crazy. And then my 2 grandsons, Casey and Cam, that's their life. And then my granddaughters, Lucy and Gabby, they play volleyball, like you said, select volleyball, tryout, volleyball, and they made teams, and then their school team is playing in tournaments and games. So now you have, 2 or 3 volleyball matches that you have to get to, over the course of the weekend. It's a lot. It's a lot for the kids, and it's a lot for the parents too, isn't it?
Right. It is. And, I know on the select volleyball team my granddaughter plays in, when the games start, they're all tournaments, and none of them are in town. It's Indianapolis for a weekend. It's St. Louis for a weekend. It's Atlanta for a weekend. It's Columbus for a weekend.
Yep.
And it gets to be unfortunately a large expense for the parents.
No question. No doubt. I mean, it is. It's a huge expense. Now you hope, you might be able to capitalize on that down the road, with some sort of a opportunity at the high school level that might lead to a college scholarship. But you certainly can't bank on that. There's no question about that.
The percentages are against you.
Yes.
It's just like the percentages. You go to college on a football scholarship. Well, the percentages of you going into the NFL, even though you're on a D1 team on a scholarship, are about 1%.
Yeah.
Of the players, go on to play in the NFL. So it's, you gotta sports. You gotta, do it for the love of the game. And I think that's why, you and I were both successful, is because although it was our profession, we still loved what we did. It was still fun.
Yep.
And I, remember, I liked practices as much as I did the games. Going and playing in front of a crowd, that was okay. But I really enjoyed the work leading up to the game.
Yeah. And I think Paul Brown and Bill Walsh were a big part of that. I had Tiger Johnson as a line coach. They made football interesting,
Yeah.
It was challenging and interesting, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it was. And I think back, you talk about fun back in those days that down at Spinney Field, we didn't have lunch.
Right.
And with Paul Brown, we'd get like a 2-hour lunch break, and we'd get a bunch of, we go downtown and have lunch.
Yep.
And that's how you got to hang around the guys and do a lot. So, and even, training camps were so much different. We were away for 9 weeks, and every day was a 2 a day, and every day was in pads. But, it was after the afternoon practice, we didn't have cold tubs. We didn't have a weight room. We'd get our sprints in and we'd do whatever we're going to do. And, there was a college bar 2 blocks away, and we would have 30 guys go down for a beer.
No doubt.
And after the night meeting, we'd get, 40 guys to go to the bowling alley,
Yep.
and grab a burger and a beer. And, and we hung around a lot together. And I think, now it's guys, they got to kind of go to houses and that kind of stuff. And, it's, cell phones and cell video, I think have made it, tough on players today. And like I say, it was, fun for us to go out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Let me shift gears on you here a little bit. You were a great student as well as a great football player, basketball player, baseball player. But you ended up going to Augustana out of Batavia, Illinois, and get yourself a degree. If you had not played professional football in the NFL, what do you think your chosen profession would have been? What would have been your occupation?
I would have been a high school math teacher and coach, and that was, my goal. My Uncle Gary.
Yep.
And he was like an older brother to me. I was 12 he was 12 when I was born, and both his parents had passed away. And as my dad was the oldest one when he came back from World War II, finished raising him. So, I always had an older brother, and, I can remember going to watch him play basketball. And I'm sitting in the bleachers, and I'm using the foot, where you put your feet on one, and that's my chair, and I'm using the seat in front of me as a table to keep score of the games.
Really?
With him and Bill Buckner and T.T. Harris and all those guys. Watching them and watching play basketball and football. And then, he goes to Northern Illinois, and he becomes a high school math teacher and coach. And I was in junior high, and I'd go up and stay with him and my aunt, Nancy at that time when he got married, over Christmas break. And I'd be, in sixth grade, and he's coaching the freshman basketball team, and I would go every day and practice with the freshman basketball team, and do that. And so he was always kind of my idol growing up. And it was, a serious talk with him about the Bengals drafted me, and, and I was going to get a job. He was at New Trier High School in the north side of Chicago. And, there was a job waiting there. And I said, Gary, if I go, and I get cut in training, I lose the job. And he said, Kenny, he said, what's your signing bonus? And I said, $7,500. He says, go ahead and do it. He says, your first year teaching salary is $5,000. There'll be a job somewhere next year. So I said, okay, let me go give this a shot.
Unbelievable. $7,500. It was your signing bonus back then. Man, I tell you, the owners nowadays are probably saying, are you kidding me? A player of the caliber of Ken Anderson played 15, 16 years in the National Football League, multiple-time Pro Bowler, MVP, $7,500 to sign this guy?
I mean, you add, what it was like back in those days, Dave. I played 16 years, and you add them all together, it didn't total $1 million.
Right.
And now what's the minimum salary now? About $800,000?
Yeah,
like
750, 800. Yeah.
Which is I am all for the place. I'm tickled to death that Joe Burrow can make $50 million a year. I'm tickled to death what Jamar and Tia, whatever these guys get. I am so excited for them. Just because that's the amount of money that the league generates now, and the players deserve their share of it.
Yep. You're right. So, Kenny, how fortunate are the Bengals fans in the city of Cincinnati and the coaches and everybody to have Joe Burrow at quarterback, Jamar Chase at wide receiver, T. Higgins at the other wide receiver, and then, pick who your other weapons are going to be. And there's a plethora of them. Mike Gesicki at the tight end position. He can play slot. He can play X. He could play Z. Chase Brown at the running back position, coming out of the backfield, running the football effectively, obviously, as well, but as a very, very capable receiver, catching the football out of the backfield. Then Andre Iosivas, a guy that can play in the slot and can play X and play Z. How many weapons does a quarterback need, and how do you keep all your weapons happy, K.A., at the quarterback position?
Well, is that any different from the mid-'70s when we had Isaac Curtis on one side, Charlie Joyner on the other, Bob Trumpy was our tight end.
Unreal.
Chip Myers was another great wide receiver. We had Essex Johnson was our running back, who was a great runner and receiver.
Yep.
I think, you're successful is because you're unselfish. And, it's the ball's going to go from a quarterback standpoint where it's dictated, and, if one game that, Isaac gets, 10 catches and Charlie gets 2, the next week it may be, just reversed, and the same thing, what's the advantages that we have? And I think, it seems to me that the players that the Bengals have on offense are very unselfish. And I think that's what makes it go. I mean, how many, usually the most selfish players on a team are the wide receivers.
Yep.
All they're concerned about is numbers. And you don't hear the Bengals wide receivers talking about numbers, but, you hear a lot of disgruntled receivers around the league that are supposed to be big time receivers not getting their fair share, and they're not happy.
No doubt. No doubt. Let's talk about the defensive side of things for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's where probably the biggest focus needs to be in terms of getting the team back to the playoff caliber, back to the playoff possibilities. I think the defense this year has improved. I think, like you were talking about earlier, the offense would play well early on in the season. The defense would struggle. Then the defense would play well. The offense would struggle. It could never had all three units playing simultaneously, cohesively. But the defensive football team, I think, needs the biggest boost in terms of additional personnel, either by veteran free agency or the draft. Where would you start, K.A.? What do you think the Bengals need defensively?
Well, I think, don't you always start with the defensive line? Whether it's, stopping the run or putting pressure on the quarterback. It's like, and I've been through it, so it's a quarterback's only as good as his offensive line. And I think, maybe a defense is only as good as its defensive line. So, I think, you start there. And, I think we've tried in the draft for the last several years drafting defensive players, and just some of them haven't worked out. So I think, you just got to, when in today's age of football with the salary cap, and the Bengals got a lot of dollars focused on the offense, that you can't miss on defensive draft choices and defensive free agents. The teams that are successful in that world have had success with their draft and the free agent signings on one side of the ball or the other.
Agreed. Couldn't get through a podcast with Ken Anderson without talking about your foundation. You do extraordinary things for a lot of people, K.A. The Bengals, Joe Burrow has a foundation, Ted Karras, a bunch of current players have foundations. Yours has been doing remarkable things for a long time and helping your community cohorts as such. Why did you do it? Why did you get into the foundation world?
Well, I think, for us, when I retired from coaching, that Chris and I had a nephew that was severely autistic, and we were trying to see what we could do to make his life better. As I always said, live life to his fullest, whatever that may be. And
Yep.
That's kind of why we started. It's kind of morphed into other things right now, but it's still for adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities, and kind of focusing now on adult day services, whether it's focused on arts and crafts, or whether it's music based, or whether it's engage outings, going out, into the community, in groups. I know we have one group during the day that, once a month or so, they have their own podcast, which is kind of fun. That I've been a part of that. We take them out, go out in the evenings. We do job training and job placement. So right now with what we're doing, we're servicing about 300 adults a month. And,
wow.
Our original focus was trying to do housing, and that's a whole different ball game. But it's really exciting to see, what Ted Karras is doing, in that aspect of it.
Right.
So, there's a need, and I probably get more out of it than some of our participants do. Just when you go out there and you see them enjoying themselves, whether it's getting ready to, our staff does a good job. We'll have, concerts, periodically, and they get to pick out the songs and see them working on it. Or I always go out there and the arts and crafts. We have our cardboard Kenny out there, and I always go out there and can't wait to see how I'm decorated, depending what the season may be. And I said I draw the line in a pink bathing suit. But,
that's great stuff. Great stuff.
But it's like you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, and sure, Joe gets a lot of well-deserved credit, and these guys, but there's so many of them that you look on a Monday on their off day, and they're out there doing something in the community, and so I give a lot of credit. These the one thing about the Bengals, I think they have a lot of high character people, and a lot of guys that really care about the community and are doing great things.
Couldn't agree with you more, KA. It's well said. Let's talk about finishing the season strong. They put up 45 points this past weekend. I mean, it was an offensive display. They were on point, very very effective in that football game. They have 2 games left. Arizona Cardinals come to town. Cleveland Browns come to town. Very winnable. Both of those football teams are struggling in terms of win totals. How important is it, or how much would you like to finish with a 3-game winning streak based on how the season went?
Well, not only how the season went. I mean, that's why you play the game, is to win. And I think that's what these guys want to do, what they're paid to do, and that's why. As much money as Joe Burrow's making, and they're not going to the playoffs, but he still wants to play. That's why we're all in this business. But I think now's a chance that maybe you sprinkle in, a few of the other guys to give them, a few more opportunities to give them a little bit of experience, see what they can do, so what you have going into the next year. It's kind of a fine line of trying to build for the future and still want to win the game. And I think it's important for the psyche of the city. I think both of these are home games,
right?
And to win, the organization's been taking a lot of heat in the media.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for them to go out and play well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, winning these last 2 games, I'm sure all the media, like you're talking about, will say, who cares? I mean, you beat Arizona and Cleveland. Combined, they didn't even have 10 wins. I mean, these 2 football teams stink. Who cares about that? But I agree with you. I think finding out how good the young players are, in game conditions, under the heat of the moment, responding to the battle, and all of that. I think that's extremely important in deciding, okay, do I have to address this position group, particularly defensively? Do I need to address this position group via free agency, or do I go about it through the draft? I mean, those kind of decisions are going to be critical for 2026 success.
Right. In an offense, a guy like, Tinsley, who's showed flashes. I know in the preseason, he made some remarkable catches to kind of make the team.
Yep.
And he's been playing a little bit more now, and what can he do? And I think, all of a sudden, with Yosivas and T&J, you feel really good about the receiving core, and so it's, and it's just like, with the running back situation. I think they found out last year we got a real good young running back, and, to kind of go from there. So it's, like I say, it's a fine line between thinking about the future and winning the football game.
The one thing that I want to get back to, which is very important, and you made a great point, good people. I mean, this football team has very, very good people at every position, offensively, defensively, special teams, every position group within those sectors of the football team, those groups of the football team. But the fans say you got to be good players. You got to be great players, good people. Oh, that's great, but show me somebody with a little dog in them that's gonna win football games for us. What's your take on that, Ka?
Well, I think that they're good guys, but they've got the competitiveness to
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of a when you talk, you don't have to be a jerk or a hot dog to have a little dog in you. I think
Right.
that's the competitiveness in you. And I mean, I go back to 1979 was the worst Bengals team I was ever on, and we did not have a lot of good players, and we didn't have a lot of good guys, and we didn't have a head coach that was going to install discipline, and it was it was a tough time.
Yep.
And like I say, and that's the only time in the middle of the season I went to Mike and Paul Brown. Said, do you know what's going on? And well, we think we have an idea. So, no, let me tell you what's going on. And okay, what are you going to do? Well, we'll address it at the end of the year. And so now you're just trying to fight to get to the end of the year. And of course, they made a change, and we got somebody that was a disciplinarian and Forrest Gregg, and you saw what happened.
No question.
And that's why I look at what Zac and the coaching staff have done. They have discipline on that team. They have accountability on that team. There is no quit in those guys.
Right.
And like I say, I'm a big believer in that Zac is the right guy, for the job. And I think he's got a good staff. And so I know he gets a lot of heat in the paper, and there's certain billboards, around town.
Right.
But I am firmly behind Zac.
I do think that the Bengals organization has good people, players, head coach, assistant coach, organizational people, general manager, scouts, everybody making the decisions. And good people don't quit. And that's you addressed that point. I think that's the biggest thing. Go in that locker room after games, and there's no quitting these guys. I mean, they're not making excuses. It's like, yeah, they were better than us. We got beaten. We have to just improve. We have to do things better. We have to make sure we're sound in our approach, how we're handling everything. But there's no conversation about, oh, forget this year. Let's think about next year. None of that stuff.
No, but I think it's been a few years now, and I think from an organizational standpoint that maybe you've got to tweak, how you do things, to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
That it can't be the same old. Let's just keep doing the same things and hope it works out. You may, and what those tweaks are, I'm not sure. That I know, but I think that you got to make some choices.
Okay, I'm gonna say you're Roger Goodell for the day here. maybe for longer, depending on what.
I only need 1 day his salary, Dave, and I'm good.
I hear that, Coach. I hear that, definitely. But what tweaks would you make? What would you do differently? I mean, the National Football League is the most popular sport in the world by far. And you talk about the salaries. That's because the broadcast revenue is extraordinary.
Oh yeah,
it's mind-boggling. I mean, I didn't ever think there was that much money out there, to spend it on the National Football League. My gosh, what can they do to make it better? Do they need to put more teams in the playoffs? I mean, it's a competitive environment. There's no question about it. May the best team win. Put your best foot forward. All that good stuff. Do they need to do anything, or is status quo good enough, Kenny?
Well, I think the league's in great shape. And you look at the games we've got coming up the next 2 weeks. As far as league wide, we've got a lot of great games that are going to determine playoff spots. And it's, I think that the top of the league is good. I think it's just that you've got to now, those clubs like the Bengals have to figure out a way to get up there. I mean, everybody's got the same opportunities with the salary cap.
Right.
And you just gotta, some teams have been, more successful than others, keeping the status quo, when they're lopsided on one side of the ball, they still find a way to go ahead and with whether it's free agency or draft or whatever, and keep the other side of the ball competitive to keep winning. And like I say, and it's, the Bengals aren't the only one in this situation. You mentioned Cleveland, you mentioned, Arizona. There's a lot of teams that need to do better, but we've all got opportunities.
Well, this time of year, KA, I'm very thankful to have played professional football. A lot of people play sports. A lot of people played football, and to get to be able to play at the highest level for, a long period of time, I'm eternally grateful. Paul Brown, Mike Brown, the Brown Blackburn families, I greatly appreciate them for giving me the opportunity to play and continue to be involved with the game of football. Met guys like you, not just great athletes, but unbelievable human beings. So, I can't this time of year be thankful enough for the opportunity that the good Lord gave me to play the game of football.
Well, I know, and because we had fun doing it, and it's like the other day, I went and watched my grandson's 6th grade basketball team. They got 10 guys on the school team, and he's number 10, and he doesn't get a lot of playing time, but just being a part of, and it doesn't deserve more playing time, I should say.
Right.
But just the joy that he gets of being on a team, and when he gets in a game and how he stays in the game and he's got the friends surrounding it, that's what sports is all about.
Yep.
And, like I say, and unfortunately, when you get to the, especially the professional level, it's everybody takes it a lot more seriously, and including the media and the fans.
You're right, KA, and appreciate the time that you carved for us today. You're the best. Number one, they broke the mold.
Well, I had a roommate for 9 years that just molded me, into the player that I am. So I really, appreciate all those times, and no, but like I say, it's seeing Philip Rivers play last night.
Yeah,
he comes back, and we played a long time, and I said I don't miss the game a bit, but what I do miss is the locker room, and it's always so much fun, whether it's a local NFL alumni chapter that gets together, or whether it's for the Bengals Ring of Honor, a lot of guys come in. It's always, you look forward to getting together, with your former teammates, and that's something that'll last a lifetime.
It will, KA. And once again, thanks for all the time you carved, and keep that howitzer loose, man. keep that cannon rolling.
It's more of a pop gun right now, Dave, but I can still crank it out there for one throw, but I may not be able to get my shirt on after I do it.
You're the best, my man.
Merry you and your family have a great holiday.
Yeah, you too. Merry Christmas to you and
yours.
Ho,
ho, ho.
Yes, sir. Oh, oh, oh.